everybody. Welcome back inside the Motor Racing Network studios here at NASCAR Productions. It is another episode of NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. Whelen Engineering, as always, MRN announcer and pit reporter Chris Wilner, Kyle Rickey, MRN announcer out in Connecticut. K-Rick, it's a big day as we record this. It's also bittersweet because my Pacers looked absolutely awful last night in Game 5, but we're not going to talk about that. It is not only the start of May, and it's the best month in motorsports when you've got Coke 600, all the regional racing going on, of course, the Indianapolis 500. It's Maggles' birthday, and for those of you of the show that don't know, that's my wife that Kyle nicknamed Maggles, the big 3-5 today, so we got to give her a shout-out here on the show to kick things off.
Happy birthday, Maggie, and you're right. It is my favorite month of the year because of the racing, but also because of the weather. It's changing up here in the Northeast. The days are longer. The short tracks are opening. It's that month that allows you to look forward to summer. I think September would be probably my second favorite month weather-wise, but also probably one of the worst because the season's wrapping up and you only have winter behind you. So I love the month of May, 600, the 500, all the short track stuff. It's going to be a great next 30 days or so.
They say April showers bring May flowers. Well, I hope that's the case because, Kyle, I know it was a bittersweet weekend for you guys up at Stafford. What was a great start to the Spring Sizzler weekend quickly put on hold when it came to Sunday's feature events by Mother Nature. So we'll get to that here in a little bit. So the good news is, Kyle, you just get another Spring Sizzler weekend out of the deal. So, I mean, that's kind of cool.
That's right.
Get a little twofer here. But we got a big show for you guys at home tuning in. Plenty of action going across the NASCAR regional schedule. Everything from ARCA, the Whelen Modified Tours coming back this weekend at Monadnock. We'll talk about that coming up in segment 3. And, of course, our guest this week is Jake Finch, who's been all over the place running ARCA, late models, and, of course, your winner out at Talladega a couple weeks ago. We'll talk about that. And, of course, this weekend coming up with the ARCA Stars at Kansas Speedway. But Kyle, let's talk about the weekend. And Dover Motor Speedway had the ARCA East and ARCA Menard Series combo event. And for Connor Zilic, it's just another check in the box as now an ARCA winner. So he's won pretty much in everything he's driven in up to this point. What's next? Probably going to be a NASCAR Truck Series win before too long, or an Xfinity, or soon to be a Cup win. But Connor Zilic, man, it was a great race out there at Dover, Kyle, but bagged career win number 1 on the ARCA side.
Yeah, featured a pretty good race with Williams-Wallace early on before they kind of tangled. Wallace drove it into turn 3 a bit deeper than probably needed, and unfortunately Connor slid up. They made contact and William hit the wall. But other than that, pretty good race, for the ARCA Menard Series East and the National Series for the first time at Dover Motor Speedway. And you're right, Daytona, Sebring, Cars Tour, now the ARCA Menard Series, and so. What's next for Connor? We'll find out probably sooner rather than later. But, overall, a great way to start the weekend at the Monster Mile for the ARCA Menard Series.
It was for sure. Gio Ruggiero, of course, we're going to talk about that championship battle on the ARCA East side of things, another second-place finish here over the weekend. But what the stat was really cool, Kyle, is now we've had back-to-back first-time winners on the ARCA Menard Series platform, and we haven't had that. Well, it's not been that long, I guess. Tyler Ankrum did it and Luke Fenhouse last year when Luke won at Iowa. But one of those special things that we really get to see kind of the next wave of stars in the sport. And so congratulations to Connor. And, of course, now when you look at the point standings, I mean, Gio leads the ARCA East standings, but it's not by much. It's about 2 or 3 markers over Connor Zilic. And so maybe that's now the new championship battle. Obviously, we were going to talk about Williams-Wallace backing up his ARCA East title a year ago. Add another name to the list, Connor Zilic. So it's going to be a fun battle here to the end. Carson Kvapil finished 3rd. Of course, he had a double-end weekend. We'll talk about that in a second. And LeVar Scott, his career-best ARCA finish there in 4th with all of his family in attendance. I believe he's from not too far away, Carneys Point, New Jersey. So really cool to see that as well. Next for ARCA is coming up on May 4th this weekend out at Kansas. Of course, we'll talk about that in segment number 3. But let's talk about Carson Kvapil really quick, Kyle. I mean, I think everybody in the stands at Dover, everybody tuning in live on Fox, thought Carson Kvapil was going to pull it off and in only his second start in the Xfinity side win at Dover. He came close, but I think showed everybody that I'm not just a short track guy. He made it 3 wide for the lead there at Dover. What were your thoughts on Carson's progression now, showing that he can challenge for the win there in Xfinity Series?
Yeah, he did in the Xfinity Series. Late race restarts, like 14 laps. A great weekend for Carson. Two good runs in two races, and if it wasn't for those late race restarts, probably would have picked up the win. I'm not sure Ryan Truex was in position to challenge for the race lead. I'm not sure anybody was in position to challenge for the race lead until those couple of overtime restarts. So a good race there. How about Carson on Friday though,
Yeah.
with the pit sign to repair the right rear quarter panel of that car? It's something you don't get to see much now in NASCAR's Xfinity Series and the NASCAR Cup Series. Just how the rules are and how those cars are put together. But in the ARCA Series, you still have that little bit of character on pit road when those things happen time to time, and pretty cool. They had to cover the number up because you can't have two numbers on the right side of the car, but use what you got, and they did.
Yeah, it's just being resourceful, right? I kind of miss those days where
Right.
you would just grab something and patch a hole and say, there you go, on your way, and continue racing. So, yeah, that was really cool to see. We've had everything now the last couple weeks with Andy J's banana during caution at
Yep.
Talladega and now that out at Dover. So, good stuff. By the way, Andres Perez, who we always talk about, when is he going to win a race? He's leading the ARCA Menard Series points, actually, after this weekend in Dover. So, when you look at that, Andres Perez maybe coming up soon will be his breakthrough win, maybe even in Kansas coming up this weekend. Well, Kyle, let's talk about Stafford as we transition to kind of the regional side of things. And obviously, we talked about at the top of the show, Mother Nature ruining our Sunday plans because I was getting ready to tune into an incredible Napa Spring Sizzler for the modifieds. But we did get some racing in. So why don't we take a look back at Saturday, the heat races, what your thoughts were going into Sunday's main events?
Yeah, great field of cars, 34 strong, I believe, open modifieds. They were all going to start the 100 lapper on Sunday. A pair of 40-lap dual qualifying races set the starting lineup. Local driver Teddy Hodgson, who grew up at Stafford with legend car wins on the short track in the infield and go-kart wins on our Monday night program, and SK Light Modified Championship, got back to victory lane with the win in the first 40-lap event. And then in race number 2, Ron Silk kind of picked up right where he left off last year as the 51st Napa Spring Sizzler winner, won qualifying race number 2. So that set the front row and the entire 33-car starting field for what was supposed to be Sunday's race. There was some events on Sunday, including Troy Tallman picking up the SK Modified win, his first career win in the track's premier division, last lap pass on Marcello Refrano. Bunch of late model and full fendered racing on Saturday. Travis Haidar, a former champion, picked up the street stock win. Daryl Keene picked up his first late model win in 2 years in a wild race there. And let's see, limited late models. Matt Clement, looking for his first championship, picked up the 20 lapper there. So a lot of racing during the course of the 2 days that the sun was out but I guess before the rains came. Great crowd, just a couple dozen tickets shy of a sellout on Sunday. So overall, it was great until it wasn't.
Yeah,
That's when the rain started to fall.
for sure. And you guys did a great job. I believe spent 4+ hours trying to get the track dry. We're staying committed to the fans. Obviously, we had our colleague Steve Post up there. So, the red carpet was rolled out. We had all kinds of folks up there at Stafford, but unfortunately did wash out the rest of Sunday. So the good news is it's not over. We're going to resume action, of course, on May 10th. And Kyle, I guess, we've got 3-4 features left to run, including the big one?
Well, it's going to be a full race program.
Okay.
Complete the opening night for all 5 of the divisions, plus the 100-lap Spring Sizzler, the SK Light race that we were right in the middle of, 2 laps shy of halfway. That event will be made up the following week. They'll do double features. There were 40 of those cars on hand, and they all started. So another healthy field of SK Light drivers. So they'll have double features on the 17th to make up. I think there was some thought of trying to make it up on the 10th, but there's just, at that point, you have the 100-lapper. That's the main focus, and the other 5 divisions. And obviously, anyone that had a ticket for last Sunday, you can use that ticket for entry into next Friday night.
Perfect. Sounds good. Rain date is set. Again, May 10th. The Napa Spring Sizzler continues as Stafford starts 2024. Let's get to some late models before we get Jake Finch here on the line. The ASA Southern Super Series, of course, we talked about had that $5,000 bonus if you could sweep both Five Flags and Mobile. Nobody was able to do it this weekend, so the $5,000 is safe. But I'll tell you what, there was a heck of a race out there at Mobile. Cole Butcher and that Donnie Wilson number 28, maybe by a fingernail. I think it was the same same distance, yeah, that much that we saw Daniel Suarez win Atlanta win earlier this year in the Cup Series. 2/1000ths of a second beating Jake Finch, our guest this week. Well, I've talked about Jake of just how crazy that last lap was, but literally that much at the very end of the race, taking the battle at the Bayou 100 on Saturday. Friday was the first leg of that Gulf Coast swing. Stephen Nasse, of course, synonymous with late model racing and big time late model wins, got the victory down there at Five Flags in that Blizzard Series event, holding off Casey Roderick. So a couple names that we'll continue to hear about, of course, in the run-up through this year in both the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly National Championship, but of course in the run-up to the Snowball Derby, getting some early season wins. Other winners this week: Trevor Sanborn took the Oxford Plains opening day win. Blake Rowe won the first points-paying race of the JEG CRA All-Star Tour at Berlin, and plenty more. All right, Kyle, what do you say? We get Jake Finch on the line and talk a busy race season for him. I mean, obviously not only the ARCA win at Talladega, but running a select ARCA schedule. He's got the late models and, of course, plenty more on his slate in 2024. Let's get Jake Finch on the phone. That's coming up next here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by Whelen Engineering.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and warning systems for the automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Whelen products are designed, sourced, and manufactured in America and tested on site to meet the toughest industry standards. Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. We never left, and we're here to stay.
For 3 decades, Racing Electronics has been the #1 choice for scanners, headsets, and all race day communications needs. Racing Electronics provides the ultimate fan experience for the ultimate NASCAR fan. Hear uncensored communication from every team in the race with a scanner from Racing Electronics, or tune into the MRN radio broadcast. To learn more, visit racingelectronics.com today. Be race ready, be RE equipped.
Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by Whelen Engineering. Joining us now on the phone, the driver of the Venturini Motorsports ARCA Menards machine, the Toyota that won Talladega a couple of weeks ago and getting ready for Kansas this weekend. That's Jake Finch. Jake, thanks for joining us, my friend. You've had a busy start to 2024, balancing ARCA and, of course, the late model side of things. But let's go back to Talladega, because we wanted to catch up with you the week after your win, but walk us through what it was like those final laps, because Kyle and I were just talking about, I don't think anybody's led the entire race at Talladega ever, but yet you did that. But what was it like going down the stretch there with your teammate right behind you?
Yeah, I feel like we had a really good race car, obviously, all day, and can't thank Shane Rush and everybody at Venturini for grinding to get that car as good as it was. After Daytona, we had to build a whole complete race car, and so they did a spectacular job at that, and did those last final laps, just trying to do my job and kind of keep my eyes out of the mirror. I feel like that's funny to say it, a track like that, but just try to trust my spotter, Tyler Mon, and just do the best job I can. I felt like we did good all day, and I wasn't trying to expect anything, just try to react to whatever happened. I felt like that was the biggest thing, and not try to think about what they're going to do or whatever, and just when they do it, react if they did. And luckily they tried, and it didn't work out well for them, and so we had a good day.
Drivers often say you never really get comfortable at those super speedway races, Daytona and Talladega, but did it ever really settle in for you? I mean, you're leading, you led every lap, 15, 20 laps into a run. And other than that, the halfway break, there wasn't a caution flag. So did you ever get an opportunity just to get comfortable, catch your breath for a couple of moments?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think the biggest thing is just trying to focus on the job, right? I feel like one thing I did really well at, Daytona and Talladega was, I think at some tracks, like I wander off a little bit and kind of, get off subject in my mind, mentally. And I felt like I did a really good job of just staying on topic and every lap kind of thinking about exactly what I needed to do. And I think, there was times where I started thinking about winning or whatever was going to happen that day. And I think the biggest thing was just reminding myself, hey, I got to hit the yellow line here, run a good lap here, and just, keep running good laps, and we'll get it done. So I think the biggest thing was, like you said, staying comfortable and trusting my team and doing a good job of that.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was a good redemption win because you talked about it earlier about Daytona and that what could have been your first career win there ended up in a crash. But you come back to Talladega and you get the win at a place that I know you and your family have a lot of history at, with your father, James, getting his Cup win with Brad back in the day. So how much more special is that with career win number one coming at a place like Talladega? Even for you, a short track racer, did you think it was going to come at a super speedway?
Yeah, I thought Daytona was gonna get one, right? So I felt like, after Daytona, I really did think that we would just, go and do what we did at Talladega. I don't think by any means, me or Shannon was surprised, about our performance at Talladega, just with how strong we were at Daytona and our game plan going in, especially, Jesse doing such a great job last year and helping us out, giving us the pole for this year. So I felt like, I expected to do that. I didn't expect to lead every lap, but I expect to be up front all day and win the race. And I like you said, it was just a special day for me and my family, and it was a great day, and I can't wait to get to Kansas this week. I think, the only thing that kind of sucks about winning at a super speedway is, I wouldn't say the driver gets as much credit as another track like say Kansas this weekend. So I think to go out this weekend in Kansas and win that race is my main goal right now, and try to prove to not only myself but other people that deserve to be here. So I think that's the biggest thing is right now.
Well, top five in that race a year ago, fifth in Kansas. I guess it was last fall. How much optimism and momentum does that perhaps give you going into this weekend?
Yeah, I wouldn't say too much in that aspect, of last year. I felt like I did a pretty poor job last year. I think the biggest thing is trying to, prepare myself for this weekend. I wouldn't say I would actually say I'm not very good at mile and a half, or, the intermediate tracks, but I will give my little self a little bit of a break for myself. I've only ran once, really. I mean, Michigan's 2 miles and a little bit different racing there. So, just excited to get there this weekend, and been preparing all week with Shannon, and just excited to get there, and I just want to do the best job I can, and hopefully that's winning. So we didn't want to go there and do the best job we can, and I hope that's good enough.
Aside from the super speedways, this is kind of the first kind of big track that the ARCA Series races on. You got a lot of extra practice coming up this weekend at Kansas. So as a driver's making the jump kind of into bigger racetracks now, how do you prepare for the speed and the way the air moves with these ARCA cars at a place like Kansas? Obviously, you're already with some experience, but what does that preparation look like?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, luckily Toyota helps Venturini out a lot, and gives me an opportunity to get in the sim. So I've been in the sim a little bit. I think it was last week or the week before that, and just trying to, get some mental notes, get some marks down, and kind of run some laps. So did a lot of that, and I think the biggest thing is to watch a lot of film, watch a lot of races, watch, what I'm doing wrong, and what I did wrong in the past years, what other people have done wrong, and try to just, kind of already have those mistakes, mapped out in my head, so I kind of know what to do in certain scenarios. So things like that, going to the shop, just got here to Charlotte yesterday, so I'm still trying to navigate these roads. I don't really know where I'm at, but up here in Charlotte, trying to get fitted in the seat, make sure everything's right for Kansas this weekend. And I think the biggest thing is I don't think the speed's a factor. I wouldn't say the air is a big factor, and I think that's one thing you can't really, get used to. I think you just got to do it and watch races and kind of figure it out. But I think that's really the biggest challenge for me is going into those tracks with not a lot of aero prep, right? But other than that, I'm just excited to get there this weekend.
5 hours, I think, is what I saw of practice or testing on Friday to open up the race weekend. Not a lot of practice for the ARCA Series on a normal race weekend. It's like 30 or 45 minutes these days. How important is that, just to kind of get some track time and get comfortable? The first real long and probably one of the only practice sessions where you don't have that pressure of watching the clock.
Yeah, I'm excited. You know, we have a game plan to go in there and try to get comfortable. Like you said, I think that's the biggest thing with that much time. It gives me a lot of time to get comfortable. So hopefully we can do that, and I don't wreck the race car. I think that's the biggest thing is just go out there and get used to it, and not definitely find the edge, but don't go over it. So I think that's my goal for Friday.
Well, it's going to be fun. Of course, we'll be able to broadcast on MRN the ARCA race on Saturday afternoon, the Tide 150. Now, let's talk about this weekend because, unfortunately, you were on the receiving end of one of the closest finishes I think I've ever seen in a late model at Mobile to Cole Butcher. 2 1,000ths of a second, and I think it had the announcers confused because they thought you won. I pretty much had everybody confused that was watching that race, but what was it like behind the wheel trying to figure out who won that race at Mobile over the weekend?
Yeah, I thought I won. I still do. You know, I don't want to say I don't think I won, right? But no, that was a really fun race. I'm kind of still pretty sour about that. I felt like we definitely had the best race car, and I feel like that showed. And we had a really good race. You know, having the lead, and it kind of sucked having the lead going into 3 and 4, coming to the white flag, and the caution came out, and I was like, of course, you know, that would happen to me, right? Just trying to, you know, get that win in the supers has been a huge goal. And I feel like, you know, I felt like that was a close finish and obviously pretty good for media, but I didn't want it to be like that, right? Just, you know, with that green, white checkered, I felt like I did a pretty poor job on that green, white checkered. You know, I got a few texts about running clean and stuff like that, and I appreciate that. I obviously don't want to run anybody dirty, but I felt like I should have ran Cole up the hill a little bit more and secured the win without wrecking him or anything like that. Just do a little bit better job at that. But no, I mean, he even walked up to me and said that, so that kind of hurt a little bit, right? I felt like I should have ran him up the hill and won the race, and I felt like I did a terrible job at that, kind of let the guys down. But hopefully we'll be in that position a few more times this year, and I definitely won't make that mistake again.
That's not often a competitor comes up to you and says, run me dirty. Like, why didn't you do that? Like, that's interesting. Normally it's the other way around is why did you do that? Don't do that.
Yeah, I guess I hate to say this, but I feel like everybody else would have ran me up the track, you know? So yeah. I got a few texts, you know, Chase texted me, Elliot, he's a good friend of mine with, you know, his dad and his relationship with my dad, but he was like, man, that was really classy. You know, you didn't have to run him like that, and you did, and I felt like that was good to see. I was like, I felt like I should have ran him up the hill a little bit more, you know, and felt like I did a terrible job at that, you know. So I think the biggest thing is you know, running clean. Obviously, I feel like it's a good look, you know. I feel like a lot of young kids nowadays don't run very clean, I would say. But my dad would beat me up pretty good if I started hitting stuff. So I felt like I ran him clean, but I felt like I also should have ran him up the hill and won the race as well.
Final question for you, and that was the cap of a busy race weekend, 5 flags, Mobile. How difficult is it? 2 races, 2 days, 2 different racetracks. I mean, they're fairly close, so there's a little bit of travel there, not a whole lot, but it's not like, you know, you're doing 2 races at one track, you know, in 2 days. How difficult is multiple tracks in back-to-back days?
Yeah, I mean, with the travel time being short, like you said, I don't think it was much. It wasn't very hard. I would say. I had a great time, and I loved that, you know, doubleheader deal that they had, and luckily enough, we got the best finish between both races, and felt like that was a good achievement for our team. And but other than that, you know, I think the biggest thing is even if you had a bad day, say on Friday, I think the biggest thing is mentally resetting and kind of regrouping for Saturday. I think that would probably be the biggest struggle. But luckily enough, we had a good run on Friday and just try to come Saturday with the same car and maximize on the run we had the night before. And I felt like we did that. And I think the biggest thing is just watching film and kind of getting your mind set before each race to kind of know what to expect. So I would say that was the biggest challenge. But other than that, I felt like it was a good time and enjoyed it a lot.
Well, Jake, before we let you go, obviously this is a big month of racing just across the country. The month of May always is an exciting time with plenty going on. Obviously, we've got Kansas this weekend, but what does your calendar look like split between ARCA and late models? I mean, will you be coming to Wilkesboro to run Cars Tour? I mean, what does the next few weeks look like for you?
Yeah, you obviously have Kansas this weekend, and then got next weekend I'll be running a Trans Am 2 race in St. Louis.
Nice.
So, excited for that, maybe. I've never ran a TA2 race before, but just trying to get some road course experience, right? I don't know much of what's going on road courses, and got Portland and Watkins Glen this year in the ARCA car, so just trying to get prepared for that. Portland being at the end of the month, so I'm excited for that one, and hopefully I can get prepared and get a lot better with Scott Lagacy and those guys. So excited for that. Other than that, I think we have a few more late model races, and honestly, I'd have to look at the schedule. I try to go 1 week at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to live your life like that. Otherwise, you're just going to get all sorts of spun out. But that's awesome on the TA2 stuff. I mean, we've seen Connor Zillich, Brent Cruz, and the like kind of take part in that and be really successful. So hopefully that works out for you.
Yeah, I hope so. Those guys do a good job at it. So hopefully I can be any close to those guys. I think I'll be all right.
Well, we appreciate your time, Jake, and best of luck this weekend out in Kansas, my friend. We'll be watching.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. That's Jake Finch getting ready for the ARCA Series Tide 150 out at Kansas this weekend. All right, coming up next, news and notes and the calendar here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen Engineering.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and warning systems for the automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Whelen products are designed, sourced, and manufactured in America and tested on site to meet the toughest industry standards. Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. We never left, and we're here to stay.
For 3 decades, Racing Electronics has been the #1 choice for scanners, headsets, and all race day communications needs. Racing Electronics provides the ultimate fan experience for the ultimate NASCAR fan. Hear uncensored communication from every team in the race with a scanner from Racing Electronics, or tune into the MRN radio broadcast. To learn more, visit racingelectronics.com today. Be race ready, be RE equipped.
Welcome back into the studio. NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you again by Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for 70 years. Whelen Engineering. Just wrapped up our conversation with Jake Finch and Kyle. I don't think he's done winning on any level, that's for sure. I mean, certainly when you have the backing of Venturini Motorsports on the ARCA side of things, but you go in with a lot of momentum after Talladega to 1.5 miles, the big track at Kansas. You get 5 hours of practice. I would say Jake could be another one that could maybe pick up his second win here this season coming up this weekend.
We haven't had a repeat winner yet in the first 4 races in the ARCA Series, so definitely in position. Like you mentioned, he has momentum. The first driver ever to lead every lap at Talladega. We've never seen that before, I don't think, in any race. So, you mentioned that momentum coming off a great weekend in the short track world as well, falling 1,000 short in the ASA race, the first one of the weekend last weekend. Or the second race, rather. The announcer thought that he won, though. I rewatched that race a couple of times, and the announcer thought Jake Finch was clearly the winner, and surprise, fell up 2,000 short. So, yeah, he's got a lot of momentum right now. Should be fun to see what he can do at Kansas this weekend.
Yeah, as an announcer, you're like, man, I had the winning call. I had it right, and then it's not. So, bummer. But
I've been there.
Yeah,
I've been there and done
We've
that.
all been there at some point. That was just, again, just shows you the type of racing and the type of close finishes we have on the late model side of things. So, again, thanks, Jake, for joining us here on this week's show of Coast to Coast. Let's get to some news and notes before the calendar, which is, again, busy as, of course, we hit this big month of racing across the United States. The 57th Snowball Derby, we alluded to it earlier in the show about some drivers getting experience at Five Flags. Well, it's going to be on Flow Racing this year. They signed the deal to be the exclusive home of the Snowball Derby for 2024. Of course, that event begins December 4th and runs through the 8th. And with that contract with Flow Racing, that purse got beefed up now to a record $50,000 to the winner, Kyle. Not like we need to beef up the Snowball Derby even more just with its illustrious history, but this Flow Racing contract, again, they're scooping up big races across dirt, pavement, and this is yet another one to add to their list of value that you get for your Flow Racing subscription.
Yeah, it's huge, and I don't think, many of the short track fans out there saw this one coming. But, it's a big get, no doubt, for Flow Racing. And not only do you get the Snowball Derby, which obviously culminates this week long of racing, but you get everything else. You get all the qualifying. I think you get the hauler parking. I know there's quite a production down there
Yeah.
when the haulers enter the infield. The Snowflake 100 for the pro late models is always a great event to watch leading up to the Snowball. So and all the other support races. So it's kind of like a mini speed weeks down there to, I don't know if you wrap up the season, or I feel like you're just beginning the off season, because then the Tulsa Shootout happens a couple of weeks later and we're off and rolling again. But it's right there in the middle of kind of that dead time when NASCAR is off and there's so much other stuff happening, and it's going to be a great one to watch on Flow Racing for the first time this year.
It will, and I know a lot of you folks tuning in are diehard race fans and probably already have Flow, but of course, if you don't need added extra motivation, here you go. Snowball Derby going to be on the Flow Racing dial this year. Do you know the name Corey Day, Kyle? Have you heard of him?
I've heard the name on some sprint car events that I've watched.
Okay, well, he's now a pavement driver, and he's taken the world by storm here this year. 18 years of age. Kyle Larson has already said he's the next me. And he's backing it up, not only winning high-limit sprint car races that you can watch on Flow Racing, but he just won his first pavement late model race in his very first ever start at Hickory over the weekend. Now, running for Junior Motorsports, so he's got a good ride underneath him, but for a guy who's never stepped foot on pavement except for maybe, the fun kart zone out in California or something like that, I mean, he goes out there and whoops up on the field at Hickory Motor Speedway. I would assume that this is going to open plenty more doors for him to run on the pavement side as he continues his sprint car career. But Kyle, are we watching the next Kyle Larson begin to make his splash into stock car racing?
It might be too early to say that,
Yeah.
but it's a really good start. A lot of success on dirt. Now he finds himself kind of on the same path that Josh Berry was on 4 years ago when he won the All-American Series national title at Hickory, driving for Junior Motorsports, and now he's in the Cup Series. So we'll see where the path brings him. Right now, kind of early on in his asphalt career. But if there's a place to start and a place to win and a place to shine, it's at Hickory Motor Speedway, also on Flow Racing most weeks.
Where the NASCAR stars are born. So
That's right.
Congratulations to Corey. Again, 18 years of age, so we're going to hear a lot about him coming up over the next couple of years. Cars Tour did announce their purse for North Wilkesboro that's coming up, of course, kicking off All-Star Weekend with culminating with the Cup Series out at that newly repaved racetrack in Wilkes County. $10,000 to win for the late model stocks and $5,000 to win on Tuesday night that week for the pro late models. Of course, Brandon Jones has already announced this week he's going to take part in the Cars Tour races, beginning actually, including North Wilkesboro, but he's going to get back behind the wheel of the late model stock. So Brandon Jones going to make some waves with that as well. Going to run Ace this weekend as well. And then Cole Custer is going to run the 45th Governor's Cup out at Barry, Vermont's Thunder Road Speed Bowl. And another name, Kyle, we've seen Brad Keselowski run that race. We've watched, plenty of others. Kyle Busch, I think, has been a part of that. But
Yep.
Cole Custer going to run a late model as well. What is this fad now with everybody trying to get back in the late model ranks as of the last couple of years?
I mean, that's what we wanted, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the fans have said for years, hey, remember the old days when these big time NASCAR drivers came out to our local short tracks and raced in late models and modifieds and in some cases street stocks? Well, here we go. We're seeing it with Larson and a lot of those guys the last few years during, it kind of all started when COVID happened and these drivers getting out to their local short tracks, and that trend continues. So good to see Cole Custer. June 20th, Thunder Road Speed Bowl, the home track of our own Dave Moody.
That's
where
right.
he got his start in broadcasting, and a lot of good people have come out of the Thunder Road Speed Bowl the last several decades.
100%. That's always a huge weekend up there. And, of course, that joins the news that last week with Bubba Pollard and Kyle Busch. Daniel Hemrick going to run out at Oxford Plains. So a lot of good late model racing for some Cup Series and Xfinity Series drivers coming up in the next couple of months. All right, let's get to the calendar before we say goodbye this week. We've got ARCA at Kansas. Of course, that is on the Motor Racing Network. You can listen to the broadcast flag-to-flag coverage live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday afternoon. The first true 1.5 mile racetrack that we've had the ARCA cars on this year, the Tide 150. And Kyle, not only is it a big race with the 1.5 mile and the championship battle with Andres Perez leading just by 1 over Greg Van Alst, it's also an opportunity for 5 hours of ARCA practice. They give them that one racetrack, the first big track on the year, aside from a super speedway. 5 hours of ARCA practice. I would think you get your car dialed in 5 hours. If you don't, something's going on in that race team. But what are your thoughts about Kansas? Of course, Jake Finch is going to be in the field as well, Christian Rose and the regulars. But last year it was all Jesse Love, so we're going to have a new winner this year.
Yeah, with less practice time the last few years, I think it's a good idea. The first mile and a half of the season, they'll be racing on several high-speed racetracks over the course of the next 16 events or so. So it's a good opportunity to have that extra track time, not really have a whole lot of pressure of what they're used to, a 20 or 30-minute practice session, maybe before they jump right into qualifying. And honestly, there's probably a lot of teams that could use that 5-hour period just to get things dialed in and on a straight and narrow. So I'm thinking we're going to have a fifth different winner. I don't know who, but I like the trend that the ARCA Menard Series is on right now after Jesse Love's dominance of the series a year ago, winning more than half the races. I think we go 5 for 5 this weekend at Kansas.
Could have an opportunity. Now, Connor Mosack is in the field. He's going to run the same car, the Pinnacle Racing Group number 28 that Connor Zilch just won the Dover race in, and he won this race back in the fall when ARCA made the return trip. So Mosack in the field. Of course, all the regulars from the ARCA Menard Series as well. It's going to be a full field. I believe 26 have entered for this weekend's Tide 150 again on MRN. The NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, after a little bit of a hiatus, is back, beginning the first of 3 Granite State Cup events out at Monadnock Speedway. Again, all 3 of those being promoted this year, I should say, by Josh Venata of JDV Productions. And of course, that's going to offer some extra money. But again, all 3 are going to be at Monadnock. This is the first visit this year. What do you think about going into this one? Of course, the tight championship battle, Justin Bonsignor, Ron Silk. But at the same time, I think this is an opportunity for somebody to squeak in there because this was Ron Silk's worst race of last year. So what do you think, Kyle, going into this one at Monadnock?
It is. I think he'll rebound. I don't think it'll be his worst race of this year. Bonsignor is always strong there. He really likes these bull ring races. And with 3 events this year, the battle for the championship, obviously, you have to be good at Monadnock Speedway and Riverhead Raceway. A bulk of the schedule makes up those 2 events. Then you throw in the Seekonk Speedway, all really tight, short bull rings for the tour. And Justin Bonsignor's been the best on them for the most part the last couple of years. I like young Austin Beers. He could surprise a lot of people, maybe not surprise them, but he could dominate the event, get out front. He qualifies well, and that's another big key to racing at Monadnock. You got to qualify well, start up front because it's tough to pass there. The race goes by so quick. I mean, they're turning lap times there seemingly 10, 11, 12 seconds around that quarter mile. So I like Austin Beers this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. If Matt Hirschman is entered, I haven't seen an official entry list. He was your 2022 Granite State Short Track Cup champion. And of course, they've got some local favorites as well. Brian Robbie is entered, and he's a multi-time winner out there at Monadnock. And John McKennedy made some late-breaking news. The 2022 Tour champion is going to make his first of, I believe, 5 series starts coming up this weekend at Monadnock. Again, that's Saturday night, 6 p.m. You can watch that race on Flow. And the ZMAX Cars Tour late model stocks at Ace Speedway, along with the Pro late models on Friday night on Flow. Connor Hall leading Brent Cruz in the championship with Carson Quapple right there in striking distance, although he had to miss due to his NASCAR commitments a couple of weeks ago. I mean, this is another good one, but it's the run-up to Wilkesboro. And, a lot of anticipation for these drivers to get to Wilkesboro on a high note, including Brendan Butterbean Queen, who won that race last year. But, Kate, what do you think? I mean, because we've had Brent Cruz win a race. Connor Hall's been up there, obviously Quapple. What is your take on late model stocks there at Ace?
Yeah, it's a good field. It's completely different than North Wilkesboro Speedway there at the Ace Speedway, but a good opportunity to build some momentum heading into North Wilkesboro. And 2 weeks time, expect good fields for both divisions there this weekend for the Cars Tour.
Yep, Katie Honeycutt has a 1-point lead over Kyle Campbell on the Pro Late Model side of things, so we'll see who comes out on top. Again, that's Friday night for the Cars Tour. Some local racing coming up this weekend as well between Berlin, South Boston, Jennerstown, Riverhead, Langley, Hickory, and much, much more. Again, a lot of that on Flow Racing, so make sure you subscribe today. Kyle, before we close things out, your driver of the week this week, plenty to choose from. Who made the cut?
Hard to ignore Carson Quapple. Almost won that NASCAR Xfinity Series race in his second start, led 14 laps, had an eventful day. but a top 5 finish on Friday, bounced back on Saturday to have a career best. So it's only a matter of time before we see him in victory lane in NASCAR's National Series, and he keeps plugging along at the short track level as well. So Carson Kvapil, my driver of the week.
It'll be a great day when that day comes. I mean, we saw the nervousness of Travis's face on the broadcast. I can't imagine the elation of what it'll be like when he gets to join his son in NASCAR Victory Lane, and that day, I believe, is coming soon. All right, that does it for us here on this week's episode of NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by Whelen Engineering. Manufactured in America for over 70 years, Whelen Engineering coming on board this year for Coast to Coast. Don't forget, MRN is on the air all weekend long from the Kansas Speedway. Of course, it's a triple header on Saturday with the ARCA Series Tide 150 at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday afternoon, followed by a evening or early evening Cup Series practice and qualifying session at 5 p.m. Eastern, followed by the night race for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series after 3 weeks being off, the Heartland of America 200, 7:30 p.m. Eastern local time, airtime on Saturday night, and then, of course, on Sunday, NASCAR Live Race Day gets you set for the Advent Health 400 for the NASCAR Cup Series. That airtime is 2 p.m. Eastern. So plenty of racing coming on. Kyle, enjoy your weekend, my friend, and we'll look forward to catching up next week.
Gonna be a fun one.
Sounds good. All right, have a great one, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. NASCAR Coast to Coast. We'll, again, break it all down next week. Have a good weekend of short track racing.